The Shreveport Railroad Museum.
The engine that's running there is a Kansas City Southern, which is one of the major
Date nails used to date when a cross tie was put down. The City of Shreveport Department of Public Utilities, McNeil Street Water Purification and Pumping Station, a National Historic Landmark, built in the late 1800s and still functioning today, although not with the original equipment, which is now on display. The machine shop at the waterworks, built in 1911, still functions today. The building we're in today was constructed in 1887 and is still in use. And this is the bank of boilers they used to create the steam. They didn't need electricity, they had their own power. And this is the bayou, where they draw their water from locally, and they purify it, chlorinate it, I presume, and send it out to the city residents. Referred to as a high service pump. This would pump the water out into the city, the clean water. It was used for 80 years, starting in 1900. The initial way of cleaning water is to let gravity do the work, get some of the larger particles out. No longer in use, they now add chemicals to the water, which coagulates the particles out of the water, makes them sink faster. So the whole process is speeded up. Still in Shreveport, we're at the R.W. Norton Art Gallery. Paul Revere. This is the second of the two castings of the Mountain Man by Remington. We saw the other one at a museum, was in Arizona. Kit Carson. One of 26 known casts of the thinker. The Kiss, 1898. A Scottish dog handler. Very nice detail work. A view of Louisiana, painted sometime around 1880 to 88. The range burial, the burial party. Same subject matter. The collection of miniature portraits. Yellowstone Falls, one of the pictures that persuaded Congress to start the national park system. The Flower Girl by Ingham. A self-portrait by Charles Russell. Coming Through the Rye by Frederick Remington. The Stampede by Remington. Behind the museum is a rather extensive garden open to the public. The Norton money was made in Louisiana oil production. Entitled El Porcelino, or the Piglet. Entitled Canyon Watch. It's a mountain lion or a puma. Here's Old Ben, created in 1778. How many millions must this collection be worth? You recognize the Rough Rider, Robert E. Lee. And of course, Honest Abe. Titled The Dragoons by Remington. The Stagecoach Days by Henry. Mount Everest effectively covers one wall of the living room. Fragilina by Paganini, 1923. Now this is what you call parent failure. Riding the alligator. Little Red Riding Hood. And the wolf. I hope you can see the grin on his face. This one's entitled Eat More Beef. The museum wasn't open until noon, so we stopped by a flea market where we saw these guys playing. Thought we'd stop for a minute and listen. We're in Monroe, Louisiana, at the Masur Museum of Art. This is entitled See What I Am Saying. Letters all welded together. Entitled Evans and Faulkner. I'm not sure which is which. A small museum inside a donated home. Mostly color prints. They were very good, but photography isn't for me. The Biedenharn Museum and Gardens, still in Monroe, Louisiana, which among other things has a Coca-Cola museum. Covering the world with Coca-Cola. This is not a vending machine, it's just a storage or a cooling machine. The Biedenharn was the first bottler of Coca-Cola, and that's where he made his money. We have stopped at Vicksburg National Military Park in Vicksburg, Mississippi. The park consists of well over 10 miles of a driving tour. There are over 1,500 monuments. The driving tour first follows more or less the Union lines and then comes back along the Confederate lines. It certainly gave everybody an opportunity to erect monuments. A typical gun emplacement, the ground that's been dug is not artificially done here. This is more or less as it was found. This is what they would refer to as a battery of cannon. Trenches were all dug by Union forces. Some of the monuments are quite large. I think the states are competing here. Referred to as simply the White House by the Union troops. This is the only house to survive the battle in this agricultural farming area. The United States ship Cairo was a Union ironclad vessel. It was sunk in the Yazoo River here during the battle by 2 torpedoes we would call mines today. They were electronically detonated, and the ship went. One of 7 built in 100 days, cost each of over $100,000 each. During the Confederate Civil War. Carried 13 cannon, I believe, steam powered. These are the boilers that burned a ton of coal in 1 hour. A stern wheeler with the wheel protected inside the ship. So that would be water below you down there where the concrete is. Manned mostly by immigrants. You can imagine the personal effects that were found when the boat was brought up in the 1960s. Although hit by 2 torpedoes, she took 12 minutes to sink. Not one man was lost. And of course, there's no shortage of graves. 17,000 men died here. 13,000 of them are unknown. There was no dog tags back then, although some of the men did put identification on themselves. Bill and Jackson were now at the Mississippi Museum of Art. Mississippi story is artwork done by Mississippians or about Mississippi. Entitled Second Notice. Looks like the mortgage is past due. A quilt entitled 5 Years Hard Labor. Entitled The Gathering. An etching. Stoneware entitled Swing Low. Bronze entitled Hound Dog, with no D on that. Entitled A Hex Flexor. What has he seen here in Mississippi? And him. Plus I have a small collection of pre-Columbian art here, mostly pots and figures. Some of it dating back to the 1st century. The International Museum of Muslim Cultures. Pretty good, and you?
Fine.
All right.
Hey, you're back.
These manuscripts date back to the 15th century. Dating back to the 3rd to 11th centuries, burial goods. From Africa. Many of you will remember Medgar Evers, the secretary of the NAACP, who was shot down in Jacksonville. This is his home. It's a museum, but it's going under renovation right now.